All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody, to the weekly SIG Docs meeting. I am Jim Angel, one of your co-chairs for SIG Docs. Today is Tuesday, May 11th. Got quite a full crowd today. Anyone joining SIG Docs for the first time that care to introduce themselves?
I can introduce myself. Hi, I'm Eddie Zaneski. I am the co-chair of SIG CLI, and this is my first time at SIG Docs.
Welcome.
Hey, Eddie, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's my first time in any SIG contribution. And so I work at VMware. I actually work with Avi. And I'm really looking forward to doing some work here.
Awesome. Welcome
Thank
back
you, and
from
welcome.
last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those that weren't around last week, we had a kind of no meeting around KubeCon where folks could kind of attend and socialize. So it's not always the best one to to join as a newcomer and see how much lack of work is getting done as we socialize. Cool. Anybody else, or do we get everybody?
Yeah, hi, this is Aldo. I work mostly in SIG scheduling, and my interest here today is to discuss this issue about scheduling, preemption, and eviction, and how to improve those docs.
Awesome. Welcome. All right, so moving on to this week's updates and reminders. This week's PR Wrangler is Savita, and next week is Irva. And PR approvers, make sure that you know your PR Wrangler shifts. There's a link in the agenda there if you are unsure. And moving on to the agenda, release 122. Victor, you want to take that?
Sure. So last week we had the onboarding session with the shadows. I made sure that everyone has access to Kubernetes organization. Everything has pretty much been okay so far. Everyone has access to the enhancement sheets as well. So we will see how it goes. Enhancement freeze is sometime this week on Thursday, 13. It seems now there's a thread asking to delay this by a week. So we'll see how that goes. But nevertheless, I will go through on Thursday night, my time, sort of. I will go through it, comb it, and start assigning enhancements so we can track them to everyone in the team. And if they push it by a week, I think I'm still going to assign it, but we'll keep a close eye on how the situation moves forward, because we don't want to ping enhancement owners until enhancements basically finishes with asking them for everything to be in order. So we'll see how the right now we have a lot. We have 71 enhancements currently, and we're tracking around 69, give or take a few, because I didn't comb the entire enhancements tracking sheet to see. Some of them were removed from the milestone, and some of them don't need any documentation, basically. But we're around 69, so we're there.
It sounds like we're on track. Tentative, any extensions potentially coming up?
Yep.
All right, awesome. So moving on to issues and PRs, I did want to bring up something that came up, I want to say it was about 2 weeks ago with KubeCon and the APAC friendly meeting. This is the first time that we've all met together, and I can bring it up. As an ongoing discussion around markdown line lengths. And so some quick history here on the way Hugo renders markdown is it doesn't really care whether it is a single line or multiple separated lines. It's going to mash them all into a paragraph without having some form of markdown separator. So what I mean by that is if I have two sentences that are on two touching lines, or I guess one single line break between them, they'll render in the same paragraph as the same kind of two sets of sentences if there's no object in between them. It's like a header or an ampersand or a hashtag, if you will, for the header markdown, or any of the sort of symbols in between that. And I feel like I'm not doing the best of job explaining what the intention is here. And so when you're comparing what has changed in two files, the way git diff works is it compares line by line differences. So why this is an issue is traditionally an issue for localization teams is one giant line that never wraps to another line or never uses another line. Get diff will show the difference between the two files of that single line or that entire paragraph. So the long and short here is if there were to be multiple smaller lines, then get diff would still show that single line as being the entire piece of information changed, but now it's going to be easier to pinpoint versus like a multiple sentence paragraph as a single line being recognized as being changed. So this came up as a localization concern. To me, it has almost no impact to documentation writing in the sense of whether you put it all on a single line or put it on multiple lines, it renders ultimately the same. It just makes the life of localization efforts a little easier if they're on multiple lines. But I wanted to raise awareness here because I almost feel like there's not an outcome where you can say blanket enforcement of line length up to 180 characters or up to a certain character extent. And I think that this is going to be a very wide variety of implementations that folks would take from this action or this comment. There's a very long-winded way of saying multiple lines are better for localization, but ultimately don't make a big impact to the overall writing experience. And wanted to share that with folks. I have no problem, adopting that model or that mindset, but I don't see a way of enforcing that. And I'm curious if anyone has any questions or concerns around that. Not hearing a ton. Tim?
I guess like I can totally build a thing that will warn people if they're commits and putting in long lines. I don't know if I would, because I think reviewers, I'd prefer to have it done by reviewers, and I prefer to give the feedback from people, but we could build it.
Cool.
Is the ask for like one sentence per line, or is it to do like a cutoff at a certain character length?
I think then I don't want to misinterpret the ask here. It's more about just having more lines the better, not really requiring it to be per character or per sentence or something. Like there's no real general rule of thumb. It sounds like what Tim was referring to could be a character-based thing, saying up into this many characters or sentences or words, chop it off. The TLDR is when everything is on one line and extremely long, it's just a pain to localize. Versus when it's broken into many lines, whatever that number is, it makes it easier to view what changes and when it changes.
Yeah, especially it's really hard when you have to compare like a multiple words or like a lot of like rephrasing are there in one sentence. I mean, one line, it'll be really difficult to take the diff. Yeah, that is a really big concern for localization. I can agree it on. But one concern about putting multiple lines in like even in within one long sentence for me is that actually in Japanese we do not put any blanks, just like English or like a typical European languages, they put a blank on each words, right? So when you insert a new line in Markdown, that means you will put the blank between the new line when it's rendered as HTML. This happens a lot, and yeah, it's kind of driving me crazy when I deal with it. But I think it's only for languages that don't have any blanks like Chinese or Japanese. Even Korean has blanks because they only have the letters, not like okay, let's not talk about this anymore because it's for yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's more of the localization issue, so we should discuss it in the localized meeting. But yeah, so I would ask more like not just like putting multiple lines, but also like can you put this long sentence into a few sentences instead, right? Because it's easier for translation anyways.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I guess I'm wondering if there's any way to automate this so it's not.
I think
would that
we
be too hard?
should have some like lines, right? Like only within this word, like this word counts or letters count. but it's really difficult. I understand that.
Yeah, and it does seem like this would be something that is ripe for automation down the road. I just, my concern is the toil worth the effort? And I'm 100% worth, I think if we could automate it easily, that'd be a slam dunk. But I think there are some of the nuances and complexities of the different translations. And that my gut says the best way to move forward with this is best effort as reviewers, as approvers, seeing PRs that maybe have lengthy, single line sentences, multiple sentences on the same line might be worth bringing up and saying, hey, for, localization efforts, let's try to chop this down. If anybody, Tim, Abby, are interested in looking at automating this, I'm 100% supportive and all for it. Like, we could even roll it into some quarterly planning if we wanted for tracking. So not against automation or any of that stuff, but I think at the very least we can act today with best effort as reviewers and approvers.
Yeah, I would say the same. I agree with you.
Cool. Any other questions or comments on that before moving on? All right, so just a quick one here. This has been a long time coming. I put the pull request in the agenda and I can send it in chat here. Just raising awareness of a of a release page that, hold on one second. I can't walk and talk here. All right, let's do it in chat. So this is a release page. What really has been the blocker is not really the fact of that we couldn't create a release page. It was more about there's a heavy vested interest in SIG release as well as SIG docs working together on a release page. And there's about 1,000 different sources of data, whether that's generated from SIG release, it could be generated from the GitHub API. There's things you can do in Hugo to pull the release down. So the long story short here is there's two very overarching SIGs that want to have ownership over this releases page, SIG docs from the implementation standpoint and the visualization standpoint, and SIG release from the data standpoint. So why this has taken so long to open up the PR was to figure out a way to share the data with SIG release, as well as present in a way usable from the rest of the community. And the ultimate goal here, it says it in the PR itself, is to consolidate all the efforts. Right now, we're in the state of Kubernetes having a bunch of microsites. So you see them for kubectl, you see them for kind. You see there's Kubernetes or K8s.dev, there's K8s.io, there's download Kubernetes, there's releasenotes.com. There's a ton of release information and subsites out there. And what we're trying to do is pull the information back into the centralized website where possible and link out where we can. So that's a very long-winded way of describing what we're trying to do, but really why I'm going through so much history on this is to say this is where we got today. This isn't a perfect releases page, but it's kind of an MVP or a phase one of a releases page that I think will put the foundation in place for SIG release and SIG docs to work together on kind of presenting the data in a unified front. So I'll pause there. Any questions? And I appreciate Tim, thanks for putting the preview in there, but any questions or comments on the general release information or the PR? Cool. Hearing a whole lot of nothing. I just wanted to raise awareness that hopefully that gets in. Hopefully it gets in as an MVP. There might be some more movement around there. And then also, Victor, when you have a second, if you don't mind taking a look, because that will potentially impact the release team as well.
I want to say a couple of things. First of all, thank you, Jim. I made a start on this, and your work is clearly moving this a lot further forward than the start. And the second one is that this kind of PR feels to me like a good way for someone interested to get involved, because it's Git. So if you know enough Git to take a branch and copy that branch to your fork and fork it a bit more, you can iterate on that. You can make suggestions. You can make small ones. You can make big suggestions. And I would, anyone who's feeling the itch to get involved, this is a great kind of area where we'd love to have a bit more help. It could be polishing some HTML. It could be working with Hugo templates. It could be small. It could be big. We'd really like that kind of help, I think.
Cool. Yeah. Strong +1 there. And like I said, I really want to emphasize that since this has gone around for about a year now, it really hasn't been prioritized work. I'm really hot to to get this merged as is, and then iterating on top and getting some of those fixes in. So as Tim said, it's ripe for contributors to make valuable contributions to the overall release documentation and improving that information. Where this fundamentally came from was me selfishly not having a quick spot to check upcoming releases and the current releases when I was supporting open source Kubernetes. It was always buried in GitHub somewhere or on a release team somewhere, and really bringing that information up to the forefront is one of the top priorities of this. All right. Moving on to scheduling eviction and preemption. Tim, do you want to take this one?
Maybe Shannon, actually. Welcome, Shannon. You've been leading a lot of the pull requests on that. Are you happy to talk about this?
Yeah, I just don't have a lot of knowledge about the actual concepts of eviction and scheduling outside of what I've read here. But from what I understand, the discussion is mainly about, we have a new page for eviction as a concept, which includes, well, what was it? Yeah, manual eviction using the eviction API, as well as the kubelet eviction. And we were also including stuff about preemption there and classifying it as a form of out of resource eviction. But then there's been feedback that it's not really a form of eviction as much as it is a way for the scheduler to kind of make space on nodes to schedule high priority pods. So I think what the issue right now is, how do we classify preemption in respect to eviction?
So is that Shannon talking?
Yes.
So Shannon, this is Brad. On my team is Wei, who is co-chair of scheduling of the scheduling SIG and a scheduling maintainer. So let me connect you with him. So if you have questions on eviction, he's an expert.
I'm a scheduler maintainer too.
Okay. Well,
And
either way.
I also invited Wei into some of the issues. He's not involved in this one in particular, but yeah, we can ping him.
Okay.
Just
yeah.
how do I spell Wei's name? Sorry.
Let me.
Yeah.
If you're in the Google Doc, just feel free to type.
Yeah, let me get it. I'll go get a Slack ID. Oh.
That's pretty handy. We have the scheduling maintainer here.
So if I may add some thoughts, the basic question is whether preemption should be considered a form of eviction, and not, of course, this is not a kubelet eviction. We are kind of expanding the concept of eviction to simply mean that pods get removed by the control plane. Now this happens by two controllers. One of them is the kubelet, which would be the node eviction, and then the other one is the cluster eviction, which is done by the scheduler. So today, the two concepts are separated, and that's fine. But I think the intention of the refactoring is precisely to put them in one place. So when people think of pods being removed by the cluster, by the control plane, they can refer to a single page, and then from there they can figure out which type of eviction happened. So I think mostly Tim already has thoughts on this. What's your take, Tim?
Sure. So I'm going to respond to the question about, is eviction, is preemption a kind of eviction? And we could change that, but we are 21 minor releases into Kubernetes. There is a whole load of history. And my gut feeling is that persuading the rest of the Kubernetes community to treat preemption as a form of eviction is going to be a big ask. Now, I actually got these mixed up. Like I got eviction and preemption mixed up a while ago when I was doing some structuring. And I think if I'd thought about this more, I would have changed the concept to be the one that actually we merged changed earlier. So now the concept is titled scheduling, eviction, and preemption. So 3 different things, but one section that covers all of them. And that is how I think it should be. I'm going to put a pin in a comment about URL layout, but I want to come back to that. So my idea is that if you go to that section of the concepts page, you're going to be looking at the concept documentation. You want to understand these Kubernetes concepts that maybe you've never come across them before. Perhaps you've never come across the whole idea that immutable infrastructure might get torn down when some other component doesn't need it anymore. That might be new to you, in general, not just in Kubernetes. So I think we should have a page that introduces you to those, and then that lets you drill down. And I strongly feel that when you drill down, you should be able to drill down into preemption as a thing, and then also drill down into the 2 types of eviction as a thing, and into scheduling as a thing. So I think there are at least four concepts to cover in that section, plus any other pages we want to put in there that live there, like maybe descheduling.
So is the proposal that this page that Shannon is adding is this index of the 3 concepts?
I approved that earlier. You gave it an LGTM. I'll come back to the thing about the URLs actually. So if you go and look at the scheduling and eviction page now, it has changed. It mentions preemption, and preemption is grouped in there.
Okay, sorry. So, okay, no, but in this case, I'm talking about the specific page that Shannon is
Do you want to put a
adding.
link in the chat, Aldo? Or can we help you?
I will have to look at the pull request. I don't have it open. Could you share your pull request, Shannon, in the chat?
I just threw a link for scheduling and eviction in the chat. Is that the same area that we're all talking about, just to make sure I'm on the same page?
Oh, they're just over the next page in the Google Doc. Let me move those links up. They've gone over the page is what's happened.
So, let me.
Come here, Google.
So, that's fine. We have merged we have created a section which is called scheduling, preemption, and eviction. That is fine. Now, within that, there is a page called eviction, or the proposal is to have a page called eviction, which has the eviction through the eviction API, which is user initiated, and the node initiated, the one that the kubelet does. So those 2 concepts, are they going to be the only concepts in that page? Or can we have a page that maybe is called pod disruption instead of eviction, because eviction already has history? So then we have pod disruption, and then we have the 3 concepts of user-initiated eviction, node eviction, and then preemption, so that in a single page, a user can relate those 3 concepts, which are all about my pod is removed, right? And I want to know why.
Well, I'll come back with this isn't me as a sort of SIG technical lead saying this is how we're going to do it, but this is my personal view. I like hyperlinking. I like pages. I like laying out documentation where you tell people there's another page. It's just next door, and hypertext lets you use write the word preemption or write the word disruption or pod disruption budget and just tell people. And then the reader can choose, do they click and take that fork in the road, or do they carry on reading? So I like hyperlinks because they empower the reader to choose. And like I say, that's just my opinion.
So the idea then is to have basically, well, in the scheduling, preemption, and eviction page, we have all the links about scheduling, one link about eviction, which includes both user-initiated and node-initiated, and preemption, and a separate page for preemption.
So yeah, I mean that you have, yeah, that's what you've said lines up well with my thoughts. And now I want to hear from someone else because I've talked a lot.
So in that sense, I think I would rather prefer that node user-initiated eviction has its own page, and node eviction has its own page, because they are not the same as much as preemption and eviction are not the same. Or do you disagree with that? Maybe that's a question for SIG Node, but so
Well, I mean,
putting
I'm going to put it to the people in the meeting. Do people like Aldo's idea that actually there should be 2 pages about eviction, possibly with hyperlinks to each other?
I'm just joining in, so I missed the early part. However, I was wondering if we can actually see examples of this, or is this purely hypothetical?
I will dig out a preview of the PR we're talking about and stick some links in the chat while people chat.
So
yeah, just to add, so sorry.
Yeah, I guess we can include Wei in the discussion, and Abdullah, the other chair of SIG scheduling, and maybe even SIG Node.
Yeah, so sorry I got booted there. I got some bad internet issues here, but I did want to time box this discussion a little bit. I am failing to understand the fundamental question. It's really information architecture and where is the most appropriate placement. Is that a fair question?
Yes,
yeah, that's how I
it's
see
a
it.
matter of how do we list the things? How do we put the hierarchy?
Gotcha. Yeah, I would definitely lean in favor more towards the folks doing the work and having the proposal here. It sounds like there's arguments for really both placements, but I'm wondering, does this make sense just to have it land and then iterate on top of it? Or do we need to have this decision made before the PR can land?
I think I would rather prefer a discussion before the land, because I was already very much against putting eviction inside scheduling, because eviction as it is today has nothing to do with the scheduler. So that's why I want this discussion, so that if we're marrying scheduling with eviction, at least preemption should be included in that concept. Otherwise, there is no relationship between the concepts from my perspective.
And it sounds like there is already the approval to add scheduling, preemption, and eviction all under one umbrella. That was already merged by Tim, so we can move it under that area at least for now, and that would hopefully align with everybody. Does that sound correct?
Yes. So yes, so that can already happen, but there is still the question of where does preemption fit in that PR?
Gotcha. So
Does that make sense?
if you don't mind, let's take this conversation to Slack, just for the sake of everyone's time here. And if we need to have a further discussion next week, let's do it. But let's move this over to Slack so we can keep things rolling, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So moving on to website milestone maintainers and SIG Docs team cleanup. Looks like Victor, you brought this one up.
Yes, so when I added myself in the shadows for this release, a few people brought this up, like how is this managed basically? So as part of the handbook, when the release is done, the docs lead removes removes people like the shadows and himself. And the idea is that currently right now I don't really want to, at least for the group for website milestone maintainers, it's grown quite a bit. There are no shadows from the previous release. There's no one there, but I'm really reluctant on going ahead and cleaning that out, since I'm not really even part of SIG Docs, let's say. So that's one thing that I wanted to bring up. Maybe someone wants to have a look and knows better which ones are the active contributors, and there are a lot of people there. Like, I don't even remember seeing those GitHub handles anywhere for the past, for this year at least. And for SIG Docs team, the way that it is currently, again, like either Ray did it previously where he removed the shadows, and for this one I will do it. So I'll remove myself when the release is done, and also remove the shadows from the team itself. But I'm a bit reluctant on going and cleaning anything else, removing anyone else from there, because I really don't know who still actively uses first the milestone applier, the milestone privilege, let's say, for the website, and second, who really does, you know, active contributions. So I just wanted to point that out. Like,
Gotcha. And I'm happy to give a second eye or a second review on those pull requests when you open up, or if you want to message on Slack, we could even work it out on one of the Slack channels independently. But if I recall correctly, I think it was probably 2 or 3 releases ago, I think Savitha started bringing in the SIG Docs shadows into the website milestone maintainers group, with the idea that shadows could then apply that /milestone, what have you, for the various pull requests that get open. I don't know if that's widely adopted or if it continues to be the case, but I think that might explain why that list is quite large with some folks that maybe haven't stuck around as long as you might initially intend to. So happy to help you out there, but that's a little bit of history on there. And I hope that, does that clear up at least your question or concern?
so for the milestone, there's currently in test infra, or PROW, basically what it does is it goes to K website, and there's a configuration that for all the pull requests that are open against Dev 122, it has a milestone applier, so it will automatically apply that. However, some contributors, sometimes when they open some enhancement owners, when they open a PR, they might target the master branch by mistake instead of Dev 122, and the bot will not do that retroactively. So if you do that, but then change, the milestone does not get applied, and it still needs to be done. And I think that's one of the reasons why we really have that. Otherwise, I don't, maybe remove it from the milestone, but we don't really do that. I think enhancement does it when they decide whether an enhancement is tracked or not. So we don't currently remove any PRs from there. So that's kind of why we're there after all, I think. I think the discussion was with when it was between Nambarun and Ray, and I think part of the handbook was to add shadows to the milestone maintainers, but then it didn't make any sense, because then you could put it throughout K website. So
gotcha. And I appreciate the context. In that case, it sounds like really only the docs release lead needs that maintainer, milestone maintainer permission then to cover up any of the misapplied branches.
Yeah.
Cool. And then this next thing about reviewing config.toml and dev 122, is there anything special about that? Otherwise, I can definitely review it offline and we can move on.
Yes, I just wanted to mention, if anyone can have a quick look at that, that is for dev 122, it's not for master. And I need to do that before I start doing the integration branch thing. Basically, that's it.
Cool. Yeah, we'll definitely get approvers to check that out. And sorry to be kind of rushing here. I want to make sure we can get to, we have a pretty large agenda and we're running out of time. So my apologies to speed along here, but moving on to the analytics dashboard. Abby, do you want to catch us up on that? I know I owe you some feedback, but I figure you have more context than I do.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring this up today again. So this is a project, there's an issue link in the agenda doc, but this is a project to expose a dashboard of the Google Analytics information we collect about IO, to expose it so anyone in the community can go get this information. But we kind of, I'm kind of at a blocking point of where I don't know the best place to host the dashboard, either through a Google account, and then also the best way to host it to get it on the Kubernetes website. So you can embed the dashboard from Data Studio into like an iframe on the webpage. I'm not sure if that's the best way to do it. So I guess any feedback of it's either Google Data Studio is what we're using to host this report. And I'm not sure if there's a way to get that report exposed, like in a way to make it like its own URL, or if the best way, if people will be fine with it just as an iframe on its own page on the Kubernetes.io website. So that's sort of where I'm at. I don't know if there's a lot of, people have a lot of information right now, or if they want to just comment on the issue, that's fine too.
Is the dashboard for the website maintainers, or what do you really want to host this for?
Yeah, so the goal is to have it be something anyone in the community can go find. So that anyone who needed analytics for either localizations, they wanted to know the top pages being used, the prioritized pages to localize for their own projects, or just generally curious about how many users are active or what pages are the top pages. There was a lot of increase in asks to get access to the Google Analytics right now. So we were wanting to make a way to make it more self-service. So be open to anyone in the community.
Yeah, actually one of them is me. So, so I suppose this is not for a Kubernetes user, more for someone who wants to get involved with the community and who wants to contribute, or who wants to observe the stats of the Kubernetes activity in general. So in the term of it, I don't think you have to host it on the website itself, as embedded. You can just provide an external link. That is my current opinion.
Okay, that makes things easier. If that's the way the group thinks, that would make it a little bit easier to do.
Yeah. What do you think, Tim?
I'm on mute one.
Yeah.
I like hyperlinks. Hyperlinks are good.
Yeah, just
So
thinking.
I'm happy to have it as a different page and hyperlink there.
Cool. Yeah, and it sounds like we can definitely figure out whether it's a hyperlink or whether it's a full, iframe embedded web page. It sounds like we can decide that a little bit later after the fact. I think as far as general access, I'm kind of clicking around in Data Studio here too, Abby, and I see.
Yeah, that would help too.
And I see you can add people by names or email addresses. I wonder if you don't mind creating kind of like the master, I guess, Data Studio report and seeing if we can't share it to it's Kubernetes leads. I'll get you the official email for it. If we can share it out to a Google group, that will be the best option. That way the Google leads could then have access to editing, modifying, maintaining, managing the report. If that doesn't work, we can alternatively switch to sharing it out to all the co-chairs and tech leads, at least to get you unblocked, and we can start seeing what those visualizations will end up looking like.
Cool, that works. Thank you.
Cool, no problem. Sorry, it took a million days to get back to you on that. All right, cool. And then moving on to KubeCon sessions. Go ahead, do you want to take this section?
Sure. So we basically had these two sessions regarding the documentations project. So one, although today she's not here, Celeste hold the session for technical writing, which is awesome. I think we actually, if you are one of the maintainers, you might know a lot of the facts that she talked about on this session. But if you're new to contributing the documentations and if you want to get involved, this is definitely one of the good resources to learn how to manage documents and stuff. So yeah, that was good, I think. So I appreciate Celeste's session a lot. I wanted to say thank you, but she's not here, so maybe next time. Yeah, so that's the first one we had. And the second one is the session I actually attended as speaker. That was about your path to non-code contribution in the Kubernetes community. So it's not just for documentations, but also a lot of activities are going on in the community, like contributor experience and the project management and the release engineering. Yeah, I think there's one of the release folk here, I guess. Yeah, so yeah, it's part of it too. Yeah, so it's basically for beginners to open a door. Your contributions are welcome. And yeah, I got the result stats from the CNCF team, and we had around 400 attendees, both in real time and also the on demand afterwards. Yeah, that's what we did for KubeCon.
Awesome. Thanks for bringing that up, and thanks for recognizing us, Celeste, in your work here. Definitely awesome, and definitely good sessions worth checking out for sure. Cool. And so moving on to the discussion section here, this is something I pulled from about 2 or 3 weeks ago, so no problem if we don't know what we're talking about here, but I commented Tim's name on here and talked about reference docs toil. If my memory serves me correctly, we were talking about each release, there's usually a little bit of toil around the reference docs, and potentially bringing up some of that toil with Victor and having a discussion around there. I'm happy to move this if there's no questions or comments, but just wanted to keep track of it. Any thoughts, Tim or Victor, on this bullet point?
I would say we'd have a quick chat, or we have a chunky one, and I'd like to bump it.
Yeah, I am all for that. Let's bump it for the following week, if that works. And Victor, would you be okay next week potentially talking about some of the reference docs process as you understand it, or maybe we can kind of talk about some of the areas that are a little bit more hairy at the end of the release?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. So moving on to the next item, moving up the contributor ladder. Tim, you want to take this one?
Yeah. We're close to time, so I'm going to try and be brief. I want to encourage people to look at, well, only people who want to, but people who want to look at becoming reviewers, people who want to look at taking on bigger technical tasks, people who have an itch to scratch in terms of volunteering or otherwise helping out with Kubernetes SIG Docs, to step forward in Slack. I've got a bunch of different sized things that I could help mentor people with. And I'd like to help people move up the contributor ladder. I've particularly got a few things on the fly at the moment, so I wanted to mention it.
Cool.
Get me in Slack if you want to, if you want to do that, step forward and ask in Slack, and we will find you.
Cool. Yeah, and I appreciate bringing this up, Tim. Definitely an important topic, and I would echo your same comments that I'm very willing to help mentor or help folks move along the contributor ladder. It's always not a clear path, and I'd always recommend that if you don't have your Kubernetes just community membership, which I believe is 5 PRs and 2 sponsors, that is probably the first hurdle to get over. And if there's any questions around becoming a Kubernetes contributor or a member and you haven't done so yet, there's no shame in bringing it up in the SIG Docs channel open and publicly. You can definitely DM myself. I'm going to volunteer to Tim as well. But happy to get you over that initial hurdle if you haven't done so yet. And if you are currently a contributor or a Kubernetes member and you want to move into more of a reviewer role or an approver role, definitely happy to assist with that as well. There are some areas that kind of are fast track to approver or fast track to higher levels of permission. Usually that is your release lead or your localization lead. And those are also advanced contributing opportunities there. But Tim's right on the money with Zach stepping down to emeritus. I would imagine that that we ultimately need to get back to a odd number of chairs just for the sake of consensus, as well as I've been doing this for about 2 years now, and ultimately my run will come to an end before you know it, and we'll have to look for more approvers and reviewers as well. So spot on there. If we can help in any way, let us know. That's a great topic to bring up. I saw Eddie, you came back. Before we move on, I just want to open up. Is there any other questions about advancing the contributor ladder or any ways that we can help? All right, here not too much there. I think it would be healthy to carry this conversation also to the upcoming couple of weeks, just to keep this open conversation going. Eddie, I saw that you joined back. If you want to talk about kubectl docs, you're more than welcome to. We have about 2 minutes left here. Otherwise, we can punt it to next week.
Yeah, we can punt it in next week.
Cool. Do you want to give us a teaser preview in a minute, or just we'll save it all for next week?
Yeah, well, this is just the first time I was able to come to SIG Docs, and this has been on my backlog for a bit. So I just wanted to sync up and find out what we needed to get done there to consolidate things. And yeah.
Cool. Sounds in line with what we're doing with all the other kind of side sites and whatnot. So definitely look forward to that discussion. So I know we have about a minute left. Any other things that folks like to bring up for discussion? All right, hearing a whole lot of nothing. That is our weekly meeting, and I'll chat more with you on Slack, or I'll talk to you next week. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.